So, who are you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Harry Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
I run the Dexterous Web, which is a web service supplier to the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a vice chair of the Open Rights Group, and I set up Tell Them What You Think and ernestmarples.com.
Okay, and what was Ernest Marples? Who was Ernest Marples?
Ernest Marples was the Postmaster General who introduced the postcode, among other things. He was also a convicted fraudster and a tax exile, but we didn't actually know that at the time. We picked him as a sort of namesake.
And so what is ernestmarples.com?
Ernestmarples.com was a website that scraped the physical location of postcodes from the internet and presented that information via an API that other websites could use to take a postcode, submit it,
mm-hmm.
get back a latitude and a longitude, and then use that to power whatever the application was doing. It was useful because it was easy, much easier than scraping websites yourself, and free. So you don't have to go and give Royal Mail, or didn't have to go and give Royal Mail a couple of £1,000 in order to get access to their data.
So the postcode information that you were getting was not sort of taken from somewhere else. And can you speak a little bit more about how you actually got the
Sure. So
postcode
there are
info?
lots of websites on the internet where you put in a postcode and you get a location back in some form, primarily mapping websites. So we scraped those websites in order to get this equivalence, this information, this link between a postcode and an actual physical place. And then we presented that information via an API. So we kind of took the heavy lifting of scraping that information out of the hands of the people who are trying to sort of innovate and do interesting things on the web.
And presumably that information that you were scraping, those postcodes, originated with the post.
Yes.
The
so the
Royal
sites
Mail's
that,
list.
yes, the sites that we were scraping would have licensed that data from the Royal Mail.
So, if you just want to explain a bit about what's happened with the site.
Well, the Royal Mail decided that we were infringing their database rights and sent us some hefty legal threats, both to the site and to me personally, and
Mm-hmm.
Richard Pope, who built the site with me. Because neither of us are really in a position to fight a legal claim against us, and also because the site was not-for-profit, non-commercial, it wasn't generating any revenue that we could use to mount a defence, we didn't really have any option but to close the site down, which of course broke the services that relied on it.
Now, since this happened, obviously a lot of people have been pretty angry and annoyed about this.
Mm-hmm.
What has actually happened since then?
Well, there was a sort of minor storm on Twitter. We got stories were written about it in the tech press, on the Guardian and the BBC, sort of talking about how it was bad for the Royal Mail to be kind of abusing their intellectual property in this way to shut down innovative, not-for-profit, citizen-focused web services, which are the kinds of thing that the government are trying to encourage people to develop. Since then, Tom Watson, MP, put down an early day motion asking that the government encourage Royal Mail to provide a licence for not-for-profits. Someone, Pezholio on Twitter, aka Stuart Harrison, made a petition at number 10 asking for the same thing. We've had quite overwhelming expressions of support from people, actually, both on Twitter and in comments and on loads of blogs and websites that pick the story up. Lots of people have written to their MPs. We've written to many of those MPs have signed the early day motion. We've written to quite a few of them to say thank you, and there's a lot of support for what we're trying to do. But unfortunately, the only people who are really in a position to fix this problem are the Royal Mail, and though they have agreed to meet with us, we haven't quite managed to fix a time yet, though I'm sure they will meet with us. We have yet to hear what they'll say.
The response to the petition to number 10 I thought was very interesting.
It was a
because
different petition that got responded to. And it was also what that petition asked for was slightly different. In fact, if it wasn't, they wouldn't have allowed us to put down our petition. That petition actually asked for the post address file, the PAF, to be published completely for everyone, for any use, including commercial uses. We're actually only asking for a special license for not-for-profits to use the data for free. Though both of us do think that postcode data should be free for everyone, including commercial use. At the moment, there's quite a large industry that's grown up around selling this data. It's just impractical, I think, at the moment to try and change that. But a license for not-for-profits, which would allow people who are never going to pay for this data anyway to use it lawfully, would be really valuable, and it shouldn't dent the bottom line of the people who are selling this data to insurance companies and direct mail companies and things like that.
Because that was the impression that I got from the number 10 was saying that there is an argument for a not-for-profit use of the database, and then was referring you to the regulator, that there is actually a regulator.
Yes, it's all a bit, so we're trying to talk to the regulator as well. There was a consultation about the PAF. It didn't... we don't think it really addressed this issue in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. We didn't even know that the consultation was happening. Many people have contacted us privately to say that they have very little confidence in the result of that consultation. It seems very likely to us that the majority of respondents were people who resell data commercially, which makes it really hardly surprising that Postcom concluded that it wouldn't be proportionate to release the PAF for free use to all. Even that aside, their consultation considered whether or not PAF should be made free for everyone, for all uses. It didn't consider, so far as we're aware, the issue of making a license for not-for-profits. So actually what we're trying to do is slightly different from what they looked at in their consultation.
So how can anybody help?
Well, write to your MP, ask them to support Early Day Motion number 2000, nice and easy to remember. Please do blog about it and tweet about it and tell people what's going on. This comes across to most people as a fairly abstruse issue. They don't understand what's important, it's kind of difficult to grasp, so what we're trying to make clear is that this data is really important. It's a part of our digital infrastructure. It's a necessary prerequisite for many of the kinds of services that government are encouraging people to make. There are several people who've told me, yes, I had a really good idea to do X or Y, I didn't build it because I couldn't get postcode data, and we've got to move away from that. So, evangelise, write to your MP, blog about it, tweet about it, visit ernestmarples.com and join the Google group so we can stay in touch with you if you're interested in doing more things. I'm sure there'll be stuff to do at some point in the future. Spread the word, don't let it die.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.